Last week, just as I got into the studio, I received an email from a publisher I work with requesting a track for a true crime show on an American cable TV network. I had a full day of work ahead with lots of other things to do, so I evaluated the situation, decided I could make it in a couple of hours maybe. Now, this is a pretty typical scenario when dealing with library music. That is, you are on a contact list of a number of music houses, and unless you're working on an album, which obviously takes longer, or they are working on an album and want you to be part of it, they send a request for a custom cue to fulfill a specific need, sending cues to a TV shows in this case. The time to deliver it is always pretty limited, especially if you're on another job, and it becomes only doable if you have a workflow in place. This typically means having templates ready, having a delivery system ready, knowing your palette of sounds, and most importantly, I think, having the experience in writing in a lot of different styles. I thought it would be a cool idea to show you how I did it, and I made a quick track walkthrough while discussing a couple of templates ideas I hope you'll enjoy using your own workflow. Okay, so the first thing that I think is worth pointing out is that you need to listen very carefully to the kind of reference that they're giving you. The very first approach would be to say, okay, it's a true crime show, they want a tension track, so I know what I'm doing. However, there are so many variables. Most importantly, what the instrumentation is like, what the tempo of the reference track is like, and things like that. So since I basically got three main directions. The first thing is that there was no melody that had to be present whatsoever. This was like precisely an underscore track designed to sit under dialogue. The second thing is that they didn't want any orchestral material at all, so the track has to be entirely synth based. And then they sent 4 reference tracks that were all in the ballpark of 110 BPM. Some of them are slightly slower, some of them were slightly faster. So like my track, I decided right away that my track was going to be 110 BPMs. Second thing is how long they wanted. They wanted a track that was about 1 minute and a half, which is actually a little on the short side for most library tracks, as I would say that the sweet spot, like what is normally requested, is a couple of minutes. This time they wanted a little less, and so I did it. To do this, one thing that I have on nearly all my templates is this marker set that is actually called time marks. I write down where is the 30 seconds mark, where the 60 seconds mark is, where the 120 seconds mark, that's 2 minutes, is. What it really is to give me a visual feedback of where I am in terms of the composition. Let's expand this a little bit, and I want to start going through the sound. The first thing that I noticed is that several of these reference tracks that were provided, although very rhythmical in nature, being tension tracks, they always feature somewhat of a pad sound, of an atmospheric sound at the very beginning, to sort of introduce you to the scene. There's a true crime show investigation going on, and the way I do this very quickly is by playing a little bit with LCO textures. This is one of my favorite Spitfire libraries, and I have several presets saved, and this is one of my favorite ones. If you don't know what the evolutions are, really cool, you should check them out. Reverb insert, actually. Valhalla Shimmer is great for this kind of things and to create ambient sounds. Let's listen to it for a second. You say it goes on forever, and this gives me an excuse to sort of give it a natural crossfade into a second section, which is all very rhythmical, as you heard before. This library, it's really cool because it was really recorded in a massive hangar, so it's naturally very reverberant, and it's a mix of both percussions, strings, obviously, in some patches, and this one definitely I can hear some vocal textures. I think it's really cool. The other sounds come all from Diva, and I made a sound set for Diva which is called Aftermath, and it's available on triplespiralaudio.com. We're gonna release it the 10th of February. Could probably be out already when this video is released, and is a collection of ARPs, FX, leads, all sort of things. And I love Diva, is one of my favorite tools, and I used it a lot in my own productions, which is why I decided to make a sound set. Together with the LCO textures, I made this. I used the Campanelle presets. If you're curious about it, Campanelle was is a very old-fashioned. It means little bells, but it's a very old-fashioned way to call the glockenspiel in Italian. I guess that's how they called it during the 30s and 40s. This is how it sounds. And it's together with LCO textures. Compositionally, you say that this track, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's one note. This is generally in C minor. There are a couple of places where you hear a D flat note, which makes it a C Phrygian if you want to go technical about it. But the point is, it's very simple. After I established the mood with this introduction, what I do is to come up with a rhythmic pattern for this kind of tracks. I used this ensemble medals from Aviosity, great library, and I came up with a very simple pattern, which I felt it was like interesting enough to give, to last for a while and give and provide enough interest to move forward. See, the first 4 bars are similar, and then it gives a little bit of rhythmical variation. It's processed with delay, obviously, reverb. I think the delay is native instrument replica, if I remember well. Yes, it is. A pretty simple setting. I hear dotted 8 notes. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, dotted 8 notes with, this little. I love this setting, the snappy snare. This is not a snare. I always use it as a starting point for a lot of percussive bass stuff, and then I tweak the settings, and not very professionally at all. And I don't want to go too much into mixing because it's really not what it is about. But like this was the pattern, and I sort of augmented it with the Watchmaker by Sonokinetic, and it's a very simple stopwatch sound, which is one of my favorites of the many available. Stopwatch sound is a pretty popular kind of sound in contemporary film scoring. This is how it goes. This one as well, processed in several ways to make it loud and reverberant and snappy. This is how it sounds with the TikTok from Aviosity Metal. There is a third layer of high-pitched percussion, if you want, which is given by another layer of Aviosity Ensemble Metal. These are the brushes, kegs, I guess, like beer kegs, played with brushes. It's really cool as well. I used it to give accents, so this is how it sounds all together. Oh, sorry. So, pretty basic, but complex enough to provide drive and tension and things like that. And this is really the main structure of the track. It starts like this and it goes into this rhythmic pattern, and let's see how it sounds all together. Another big element of the reference track was this kick drum that was very buzzy, very distorted. And what I did was using another from the Aviosity library. This is the from Ensemble Drums, and and I processed it in several ways. This is how it sounds without any processing at all. Oh, sorry. Already very distorted. You see that limiter hitting really hard on the master channel, and I filtered it to get rid of most of the high frequency content. Put some delay on it, which, if I remember well, I automated during the track. Let's see if I remember well. Oh, I didn't actually. I didn't at all. So it's there. And then neutron just to make it work with the rest. So actually, a bit of EQ, etc. Neutron is a great tool if you need to mix stuff quickly, as I absolutely had in this instance. However, my personal advice is to use the track assistant as little as possible. It's really a problem when you create this kind of content, especially if you write TV music. This is really possibly useful for pop music kind of things and for contemporary production. However, I really find that it's too heavy. It doesn't really work for the kind of things that you do. So, but I still find it a pretty great channel strip and actually use it all the time. So this is how it sounds all together. Oh, and one great thing about Neutron is that it has this masking feature on the EQ, where you can see every other element of the track using Neutron. Actually, possibly doesn't work on this one. Let me see if I got it. Neutral on something else. No, so this wouldn't be the case. But a great thing about this is that if you have several elements that use neutron, you can check the masking of the frequencies and make sort of inverse adjustments. So where you raise a frequency on one track, it automatically decreases it on the other one, and it's great to avoid frequency masking. I use it all the time for that as well. So this is the first session. Moving to the second session, we have this big bass given by these other presets in Diva that I made from Aftermath, which is called for noise lovers, and this one was also heavily processed. The main thing that I did here is that I pitch shifted it down with a little alter boy from Soundtoys, which I absolutely love. You can pitch it keeping the formant at 0, which is what I did here, and the drive, this red bit here, it's fantastic. Let's see how it sounds. Really growly, and you have this sort of pulsing yet evolving kind of synth, and so this is the sound of the synth without anything on it, which is pretty cool. Some delays, number of effects. This is pitch shifted down, then added distortion with Brainworks Black Box. Absolutely fantastic plugin. I use this on so many things, and it's really cool to give things this sort of color. This sort of tube-based distortion. And then I added one-off filter and automated it to give it this sort of evolution. So you see, the mixing was pretty, is pretty bass heavy in this section. So to make work this distorted kick drums with this distorted bass, I had to, tweak it a little bit, and it's still not perfect because it has so little time in the EQ. But one thing to say though is that you're always providing stems, and you're always providing alternative versions without the bass, without the kick drum, so that editors have really a lot of choice on what to use. So next element would be bowls. I used the Sonokinetic one for this one. Bowls are like the sort of mixing bowls kind of sound became such an important part of tension underscoring. It's definitely overused, so I wanted to process them to make them sound a little bit more original, to give it an extra flavor. To do this, I automated the distortion. I used the Elysia character for this one, another great plugin, and I think I simply bypassed it. Yes, I bypassed it in some instances. So I reversed the first hit, and here is it straight without any distortion, but with a number of effects, and here is it distorted. Yes, this is how it sounds in contest. Oops. Wow, pretty distorted. Here, right in the middle, one thing that I always do, and is so important for placement of library music, which is to give the editors a break. This is a part in the middle where your instrumentation gets stripped down. You provide a quieter moment for the editors to work with, and that leads you into the second part of your track, which is slightly different, and this is what I did. Dropped a few elements, quite a few elements. Okay, the second part. To do this, I used the deep drums in Arc 2 by Orchestral tool. Quite an old library, but I still use it all the time, and I love the percussions in this. Here again, you compress them quite a bit, EQ them, and use some delay. This is how they're sounding. Okay, I took the same element as the first part for the high-pitched percussion, but I dropped the watchmaker. And the main difference is that I added this pulsing bass. This is another of my presets from Aftermath for Diva, and I again distorted it with Black Box. And then final part, another tool that I use all the time, Shimmer Strike from In Session Audio. Such an useful tool. I think it sounds really good, and it's so easy and so quick to come out with a great sound. I think it's just one of their patterns, and I used it on the very last bit to provide a little bit of a variation. And that's it. And then the ending, really, pretty much just give it a 4. I just decided to give it like a full bar of a little bit of a stripped down instrumentation, and then close it on the down bit, as requested pretty much everywhere nowadays on library music. And that's it. Again, pretty quick, very simple, only a few elements. Most of them I had available on. Well, actually, I started from an empty template, but then you see what I do is that I save a lot of the stuff in my user patches, and I have them divided into things that I use the most, and then I can freely and pretty quickly recall them when I need them on a track. And this is pretty important. This is the way I prefer to work on library music. So if it's something orchestral, I normally have, a full-blown template with everything from woodwinds to percussions to strings all laid out. Whereas for library tracks, especially for underscore library tracks that require a bit of a simpler instrumentation and have a lower track count, what I prefer to do is actually to keep my template a little bit more modular. So to start with something empty that is exactly like I want it to be. This means right tempo, flexibility, the kind of window setup that I want. These time marks that I was talking about, my master track visible, a couple of return tracks ready to go, and then from the rest I like to have a ready-made palette that I can pick from depending on the instrumentation that I need. So I guess I like to go a little bit more modular for my instrumentation to keep it quick and easy. So again, I did this in 2 hours, including mixing. The only thing that they asked me to do is that they thought for some reason that it wasn't loud enough. I measured the version that I gave them, and it was about -13 LUFS, which I think is insanely loud. Yeah, they wanted it about 3 dB louder, so I squashed even more the limiter. Just a very quick look at the master channel. I have a very light compressor that I use all the time, the Townhouse bass compressor, possibly my go-to master bass compressor. Sounds really good, gives the track a little character. And then Ozone 8 again for lack of time, and again use the master assistant very little, because I find it extremely aggressive. I did use the EQ quite a bit. This looks like a lot, but it's actually just a couple of dB per side, and 1.5 shelving, and the maximizer. As you can see, it's absolutely squashed. It looks like it's what is being requested more and more. There are a couple of things to notice on when delivering this, on when printing stems, because I also have a way to print stems quickly, and you don't want your stems to go through your master channel, obviously, but that is possibly material for next video. And I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was useful. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and please subscribe. The channel is pretty new, but I do have quite a bit of things coming, and I think you'll enjoy them. And so see you next time. Bye.